Hello everyone, it's Chris here. Welcome back, welcome back. Last night I spoke to my lovely wife, Rebecca, and I realized, we were making these videos and I was bringing them out once a week, which I still do. They will still appear on the main channel, the Legacy Conversation channels once a week. And it will keep on appearing there until I suppose April, May of 2026. Today is the 7th of July, so you can imagine how far ahead we are. And then I realized, it's actually a bit silly because if you read the book and you find a link to come here to see where I actually speak about the book, and there are some of you actually doing that, thank you, then you click on it and you will have to wait 6 months before you actually see what I have to say. And that's to me, it's just silly, isn't it? Silly. So I decided, no, let me rather than make all the videos out. Let me bring them out, and I'll just announce them once a week on the main show. And so once I did that, of course, YouTube immediately says, there's suspicious activity. Oh, and I had to fill in forms almost to apply to get back to my own account. It's amazing. When people try to help you, that's where I get. Okay. But anyway, we're still testing our new rig with a microphone here right in front of me, which is attached to a phone, which is a Galaxy A05, which is good enough. I got it. It's my travel phone, actually. It's good enough. And it's only it's the afternoon now. Normally I do this just after breakfast. But man, you wouldn't believe what happened here. I have two cats here belonging to Rebecca and myself, and they're part of a family. And they really assist us with the house. And if there's any rodents or snakes or anything like that, they would get hold of me. And so the one cat, which is informally known as Kufut Cat, which was a police unit, counterinsurgency unit in the old days, I wasn't in it. But if you want to know about that legendary, it's an absolutely legendary unit, you have to go to the main channel to Legacy Conversations. So anyway, the actual name of a cat is not Kufut Cat, that's what people call it, but the actual name is Little Bear. So about a week ago, Little Bear, I could see wasn't doing that well, so I took it to the vet and we put a drip on, got some booster shot and a little bit of, the old antibiotics, things like that, because in the monsoon season in Thailand, your cats do get ill. I don't know exactly why, but they do. And so he came back and then he disappeared. Last I saw him on the video, because we got CCTV absolutely everywhere here. And so I saw him walking out, and he looked okay, walking to the front of the first floor of a building. And then he disappeared for 3 days, and I was quite worried about it, as you can imagine. And then the next moment is I got a call from a hotel, which is the building after the building right next to me, behind me. So I ran there, and the cat is poor thing, really ill, just lying there. So right now, Little Bear is in hospital again. We're keeping him there now, on a drip, and I'm sure he'll be okay. And I must tell you, it's a funny thing because I served for a short time. I served in a South African Police Force dog unit, the dog school, and so I do love dogs. Always had dogs. But when we discovered the cats, man, I think I became a damn liberal or something. But anyway, I want to speak to you about a book called Codename Jen. Now, Jen is actually the sister of my late wife, Melissa, and it's a great book to read. Really, there's a lot of things we expose in that book, which I'm sure if you're American, you're going to be angry. But don't be angry with me. I'm just a messenger, You think about it. So you may ask me, what is this book about? Now, interesting, they are in northern Botswana, but they're not actually operating in Botswana. They want to operate in Zimbabwe, the former Rhodesia. And she's flying a twin-seat F5T fighter jet, which he wants to use to destroy a convoy, a military convoy inside Zimbabwe. Now, exactly why she wants to do that, MI6 is also there, of course, in the form of Sir John and his people. Now, you have to read Codename Foxtrot, which is the first book in the series in time, even though I think it's book 6, where we describe actually why Sir John of MI6 is actually seen as an enemy here, because he, according to Foxtrot, who's later the husband of Angelique, according to him, and Angelique sort of agrees to it, not completely, but she sort of agrees to it. Sir John is actually responsible for Foxtrot's late wife, that she died. And in the book, Codename Foxtrot, they explain why. And ever since that, Foxtrot is looking for an opportunity to kill Sir John. And in this book, he actually gets that opportunity. But I'll get to that. The F5T fighter is actually, the T stands for Thailand, I believe. They had different guns. They had 50mm guns and not the 20mm. But in this book, Angelique upgrades the guns to cannons to 23mm. Basically, she takes the same gun which you would find on the ZSU, anti-aircraft gun, a Soviet gun, and she puts it inside the aircraft. I spoke to the engineers. They said to me, yeah, it's quite possible it will stick out a bit. And of course, he's doing that for reasons which will come out in the book. And what's also interesting, it harps back to the former Rhodesian Air Force pilot, which we met in codename Mel's Choice, a fellow called Sir Dennis. Now, Sir Dennis actually exists. I mean, he definitely exists. The only difference is I made him a pilot in the Rhodesian Air Force, but in fact, in real life, he was a pilot in a Middle Eastern country's Air Force. You can work out yourself which one. And it's one of the great spy stories because it was mentioned. I do know this is mentioned in other books as well, or there's strong rumors about it, but I never thought I would actually meet the man with the legend. And apparently he was a test pilot in the Russian, the Soviet Air Force. Talking about 1960s now. He wanted to be a cosmonaut, but then an aircraft crashed somewhere, RAF aircraft crashed somewhere in Cyprus or Malta or one of those places in the Mediterranean, and the pilot died. And since Sir Dennis could actually speak English very, very well, a real high-class pommy bastard, that type of English. Pommy hooligan, actually, that's what we call it in the book, but they're all bastards, by the way. And so his parents went to the Soviet Union just before the Second World War. So he would have grown up in a very British society type of thing. So he speaks perfect Pommy hooligan. So he assumes the identity of a state pilot now, and he joins for a Rhodesian Air Force. In the book, anyway, as I said, in the real life it wasn't, and he became a legend. He became a damn good pilot. Good fighter pilot and a good bomber pilot as well. And then afterwards he flew for Top Gun, which you all will know about, and we're going to speak about it. Here's my notes, because there's a South African link, which we all know, but probably you people don't. And which is revealed in this book, the South African link. I think it's revealed in codename Blue Tang as well. But anyway, it's good to reveal it again. So Sir Dennis, after Mel's Choice, he's actually caught. He's captured as a double, as a penetration agent. Angelique gives him the chance, if you read the last chapter of Mel's Choice, gives him a chance to either surrender and work with MI6 or to die right there on the spot. And he decides he will rather not die. And Foxtrot is unhappy with that. He felt that Sir Dennis did try to kill them at some stage, so they should kill him. But, it's not his choice to make. And then Sir Dennis, the real one, is actually a most fantastic man. He's a really great guy. He's one of those lovable people, you have to listen to the man. He's just one of those people, you know, he's just fantastic. Even if he speaks with Pommy Hooligan, you know. Yeah, I remember the concentration camps in the Boer War. But he's one of those likable ones. And now he's back, and the reason why he's back is Angelique, even though she's a good pilot herself, she's not that good with an F5. She doesn't really know the aircraft that well, and now she knows that Dennis is around and she can get in to fly a last mission. So he would be sitting at the back and she would be sitting in the front, twin seat, of course, and then he can fly this mission against this convoy. What is in the convoy, man? If you read the very last pages of the books, you find out, and then there's a reason why they destroyed this convoy. They had to. The problem, of course, is always with Zimbabwean Air Force are not a bad Air Force, not at all. Very old. They have MiG-21s, things like that these days. But still, the MiG-21, you know, MiG-21 can really cause serious trouble if you can't defend yourself. But the F5, as you will see here in this book, is actually very well regarded. So Dennis, after he left the Rhodesian Air Force, was actually the other one, he started flying combat with Top Gun and those things. He was in part of the aggressor squadrons. And there he flew a F5, like he says, on hundreds of combat missions. Simulated, of course, but that means he really knows what he's doing. And that brings us to the main reason for the book. We found out, and this is absolutely the God's honest truth, that all those Top Gun scores were falsified. Basically, what they did is they lied. But I'm going to discuss it just now. So that's what the book is about. And then lastly, Sir John has a BBC journalist there, which he wants dead. He wants him killed. And he wants him killed from inside Zimbabwe. So Foxtrot and Phil Slong, who is the third member of the team, both ex-Special Forces members, they get the job to kill this guy. So what they would do is they would use a motorized glider, fly over the border into Zimbabwe, and then shoot this mobber dead. Oh, you know, if I could have made it to CNN or whatever, Clinton News Network, whatever. I could have made it any of these mainstream news outlets, but I've decided on the BBC because why not? The problem for Sir John is he has to bring this guy to a certain place. Now that takes real guts from Sir John because he's fully aware that if Foxtrot is getting his way, he's dead, man. There's no way he's going to survive us. The only thing between Sir John dying and not dying is Angelique Dawson, who has flatly said that don't kill Sir John, which is a good thing because in the later books in the Eggbreaker series, which of course was written before this, but comes later in the story, Sir John does play a major role because he becomes the money man. He becomes the one who is starting to destroy the Muslim truce, which I'll make a special episode about. So anyway, so they have to shoot this guy and they have to do it against the sun. And they decided they're going to do it at 3,500 yards. And they're going to use a 20mm Trevelo gun, which is, of course, some people call it an anti-material weapon, but the specific one isn't just a 20mm, it's, I think, a Hispano 20mm, so it's a bit more. Anyway, we described that in great detail, how you would do it, how you would set it up, and how you would shoot this mother, except that Sir John, of course, always playing games, always playing stupid games. He has a drone flying to record this entire thing so that he can blackmail Angelique later. Yeah. But Angelique is not stupid. She knows that. So let us talk first. The first thing which came out in this book, which to me was fascinating, is the Botswana Defence Force. Now, Botswana, as I said to you in other videos, are actually the one country in Africa which you can say is a success story. Really, there's no nonsense there. There's no real crime there. They still have a death penalty. It's a country with a strong currency. It's a country which is not warlike. They don't like war. They've never been in a war, as far as I know. They went on all these Africa African nations, that type of place. They go on these peace missions, which is not war. In fact, we're making a video on the Legacy channel where we speak to military veterans, police, spies, people like that. We're making actually a video there to explain to people what is a peace mission, especially in Africa, because it seems to me people don't know what it is. So they judge them according to their own standards, which in our time was outright war. And then, of course, these guys wouldn't come over well because they would surrender more easily. We would never surrender. Things like that. But they're not equipped, nor are they there, nor are their outlook there is one of war. They're really not. Really not. It's a totally different type of operation. So the Botswana Defence Force always go on these missions and they think a lot of themselves. I won't say fuck knows why, let me rather say F knows why, I don't know. What we've seen of them is not impressive. And why not? Because let me tell you, they are trained by who? The US Army. There you go. There you go. Africa Command. Now, I'm not going to talk about Africa Command ever again, or not in this book anyway, because, you know what? I spoke about it so many times, so many videos. Let me just tell you, they crap. They should go home. Ever since they arrived in Africa, they just effed up like always. And the problem is now 10 times worse than what it used to be. If you don't believe me, please read the books or go and educate yourself. Go and find out. You'll find out I'm actually correct, because I am correct. And the one good thing I have to say about the Botswana Defence Force is that they do receive their officers, about 85% of their officers would receive further training in the US itself, more advanced training. Again, my question is, for F what? Because, this is like the US or the Brits or the French or whoever actually polls. We're trying to teach the Ukrainians to fight the Russians. But you know what? The Ukrainians can actually teach them how to fight it, because the West has been fighting counterinsurgency wars, basically, and counterterrorism for the last 20, 30 years. So in other words, you have no flipping clue how to fight a conventional battle. You don't. Please admit it. And I'm glad to say that there are now former US Army officers now actually coming out and saying, well, the best military in the world right now, 2025, July, is who? Not the US. No, you don't even rate under the top 10. That's according to me. But according to these people, they rate the Russians top and the Ukrainians, funny enough, just below them. I wouldn't rate Ukraine that highly. But the Russians definitely, they combat hardened now. They know they've changed laws, the laws of war, in the sense that the drones really made a difference. This, I think, blitzkrieg idea, I'm not sure it's going to work anymore, but we'll see in the future. But the good thing about the Botswana Defence Force, and it's very small, it's 10,000 people, not even half a division, in other words, is that they never commit crimes or anything strange in the US. By which I mean, how many times, tell me, I want to know, how many times do we have to read about some Saudi airman or something which goes to the US for further training? How many times is these guys arrested and then released for raping little boys? How many times? It happens so often that it's actually classified. But if you start looking online and you start looking at the newspaper articles, let me tell you, it seems to me they only have pedophiles in the military. Of course, it is an Arab thing. We saw that in Afghanistan as well. It's pathetic. I mean, there was quite a few US Special Forces members, and they're not all bad. It's all what I say to you. I think the unit is Mickey Mouse, but the individuals inside might actually be quite good. And there were quite a few of them who started, coming out to this, that they can't work with these people because of the rapes and human rights abuses and things of that taking place. And of course, what happened then? Yeah, of course, it's dropped under the carpet. Yeah, it's a funny thing, man. If you talk to the actual combat veterans, they will tell you that the Afghan army was just plain shite. They had a unit here and there, which is good. Same with the Iraqi one, just plain shite. The unit here, which is that, which might have individuals, which is okay. but most of them just shite. And funny how that things never actually reached the mainstream. When it read the mainstream, or when it got to the mainstream, of course, it was suppressed. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So you also never find the Botswana government, army or officials like that ever asking for, to stay behind in the US or any place like that. They all go home. They never ask for such things. So it's a peaceful country. It's a great country. If you can visit it, please do so. It's really a great country. But anyway, for us in South Africa, of course, we urinate on them. We don't think much of them at all. The South African army is not what it used to be. But I'm one of those who are not that critical. And if you read my books, you'll find out why, because certain units are still very good. The problem with the South African military is they're not funded. They're really starved of funds. But I can also tell you that the US established a large air base in Botswana, very close to Gaborone, which is about 30 kilometers from the South African border. Yeah, you're stupid. Let me say that to you once again. Because if you ever start building up forces there, which the South Africans start thinking for some reason is to attack them, we will dare to attack you first. I guarantee you that. We'll dare. We will wipe you out. We will just go over that border and wipe you out. Whether we use special forces or we use the spies, the assassin teams, the egg breakers are now getting a bit old. Go and read Codename Crocodile if you want to know what I'm talking about when I talk about assassins or egg breakers and things like that. I do describe where they come from. Well, then anyway, let it be assured there's nothing in Southern Africa which will stand. And if you want to try that with your logistic lines that far, come. I'm not joking. I'm really telling you, come, try your luck, see what we do to you. Yeah, we don't rate you highly at all. So anyway, so that base, I think it's at a place called, what's the name? Tebe Botswana or something. I can't even say the damn name. But I know it well. It is totally scouted out. We totally know where's everything. We totally understand what's going on there. And we keep an eye on it. Definitely, we keep an eye on it. But if you also read or listen to Codename Mel's Choice, you will find out that the Chinese military have a big base at Marangwe in Zimbabwe, which is the country now between Mozambique. You'll find, if you go from right to left, from the Indian Ocean towards the Atlantic Ocean, in other words, from east to west. Yeah, I know it's a bit other way around. You'll find Mozambique, and then you'll find Zimbabwe, and then you'll find Botswana, which is a landlocked country, and then you'll find Namibia, which is also, it seems to be a good success story in Africa, which is great. I'm glad for them. But in Zimbabwe, on the side of Mozambique now, in other words, the other side of Zimbabwe, from where Botswana is, they have a very big military base with Chinese, called a place like Marangwe, but you can read, you can actually read Codename Mel's Choice if you want to know about that. So anyway, the F5 is a fantastically good aircraft, the Northrop, I think it's called, or the manufacturer, and it never actually got a chance. Yeah, it never really got a chance because the more famous one of those years would actually be the Phantom, the McDonnell Douglas Phantom, F4, which comes in the different F4E, F4D, and all sorts of different models. One for the Navy, one for the Air Force, and they were also exported. I think the Royal Navy used them at one stage, probably the RAF too, I don't know. The RAF used them, but definitely the Royal Navy did. I mean, they still had carriers. I don't think those baby carriers of yours without aircraft means anything. But whatever, it's just my opinion, who cares? Before this F5E, which was the original one, well, the one which became famous, before that one arrived, The US Navy and Marine Corps used the A4 Skyhawk, good aircraft, as well as the board A7 Corsair, which was very much the same as the MiG-17 and MiG-19. But then came the MiG-21, and so for the aggressor schools, that's what I'm talking about now. That's where the F5 came in. So if you look at the last part of Top Gun, the movie, the first one, you know, the one which the CIA funded, yeah, that one. You'll see that these black aircraft is now attacking them, and they are all in a flat spin, and okay, whatever. Those are actually F5s. Those are the aggressor squadrons. Now, basically, what comes this down to? I mean, if you can train any pilot quite quickly to take off and land an aircraft, start it up, take off, land, fly around, and that's not a big deal. When you actually train a combat pilot to fly that thing on the edge, that's where the real stuff comes in. That is where it's different. That's where the commercial pilots cannot do it. But they just don't have the skills. Of course, a military pilot can go down to the commercial level. Commercial level cannot go up. I know there's a lot of people who are very angry when I say that, but whatever. So the US quickly realized in Vietnam that they've got a huge problem. And their problem was their fighter pilots weren't trained to fight. In other words, they got there, they could take off, they could land, but they couldn't really fight. They never knew how. They were never trained, and they didn't understand the doctrines of the envelopes to fly or anything like that. They just didn't have the knowledge. And so where in the Second World War they could shoot down about 12 German aircraft for every one of their losses, US came late in that war as always. And so, by that time, Luftwaffe wasn't what it used to be, not at all. And many of these aircraft they shot down were bullshit anyway, it wasn't even true. But that's true of all pilots. I mean, they all lie. Not on purpose, they all explain things which didn't actually happen. But the need then, they created this wonderful story, this myth that they can shoot down about 12 to 15 aircraft for every one of them which they lost. And to be honest, that's bullshit. And then came Vietnam, and suddenly they realized there's no such thing. And the other thing they realized is that the Phantoms came out without a cannon. Because why? Because the military-industrial complex said to them, you don't need cannons, man. We've got sidewinders and Sparrow missiles and air-to-air, man. This is modern times, man. You don't do the First World War thing anymore. You just get on the guy's six and you just launch your missiles and you go home and you shut him down. Well, your problem is that 92% of those missiles actually fail to hit the target. That means 92 out of 100 times your air-to-air missile in Vietnam will not work. Oops. Now what do? Now you missed that MiG, and that MiG actually has a good and heavy cannon with it, and it's going to shoot the hell out of you. What do you do now? Yeah, and then there's of course all the missiles coming at you from the surface, and there's electronic countermeasures. Yeah, no, it's a hostile environment, man. So they quickly realized they need to set up aggressor schools. In other words, Top Gun, and later in the US Air Force they would talk about a red flag, I believe they call it, or something. So they needed an aircraft which can simulate to be the enemy aircraft. In this case, they started using the F5E, which is almost this aircraft which Angelique is going to fly. And then they're going to put this aircraft up in mock combat against their own aircraft. And then they can work out the envelopes to fly, to defeat this thing, because it's all maths. It's all maths and science. It's really that if you know who's John Boyd, I'm really impressed with you. But if you don't know who's John Boyd, please have a look at codename Blue Tank. where I described John Boyd to you in great detail. Also a chap called Pierre Spray, which they were known as a fighter mafia. Why? Because they believed in dogfighting. They said, look guys, missiles and all those things are good and cool, but you know what, you need an aircraft, a fighter aircraft which can fight. You can't just depend on missiles. That's what they said. And this John Boyd was actually known as 42nd Boyd. Why? Because he would shoot down any opponent in 40 seconds. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's frightening, isn't it, if you think about it? And between him and this spray fellow, they introduced the F16 and the F-18, and of course they had variants which went on from then, further onwards. At that stage, that's exactly not what the Air Force actually wanted. The Air Force were looking at the F-14 Tomcat, you know, of Top Gun fame. It's a shite fighter, by the way. I'll explain to you the reasons in this book, in Codename Jen. And it had swept wings, I think like a MiG-23s as well. But that was a dead-end street from a technological, scientific viewpoint, totally dead-end street. And Spray and John Boyd was totally against this. And they were the ones who said, no, stop this nonsense, you don't, it's rubbish. And that's where the F-18 and the F-16 came from, which is exactly what the Navy as well as the Air Force didn't want. And the Navy almost ended up with the F-16, but the F-16, the first models apparently couldn't fly at night. You know, your F-35 still cannot fly in thunderstorms. The Australian Air Force had to ground all of these. Perhaps it's fixed by now. Yeah, oh shame. And it cannot dogfight either. Yeah, oh shame. And it's not stealthy. Oh shame. Yeah, I'm just telling you. But you don't need to get angry with me. This Pierre Spray, he was aeronautical engineering and French literature at Yale. He also studied at Cornell. And he went out and he criticized this Lockheed F-22 and F-35. He said the F-35 is overweight and dangerous. Yeah, that's not my words. I'm just saying to you what this guy says. It's as if Detroit suddenly put a car out with lighter fluid in the radiator and gasoline in the hydraulic brake lines. Yeah, that thing can explode, man. And he says that is how unsafe this plane is. It's full of bombs. There you go. There you go. It's the worst flipping aircraft in the world. Why are you so happy with it? I just wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know. He also, the spray was also involved with the A-10 Warthog. Before you thought I said something very weird to you. Which is one of these aircraft which the US told is like, you know, oh, we just need to arrive. Yes. And then we're going to come in low and fast. Yes. And then we're going to shoot all the tanks out. Yes. Yes. You know, that was Second World War tactics. Yeah. I think it's Hans Rudel or somebody. They became famous doing that, where they would actually fly with a Fokker-Wulf and then a cannon on it, and they would go down and they would attack with Soviet tanks. And I think Rudel, if it's his name, I speak out of memory, has killed more than 500 such tanks. Yes, you can do it. But chaps, we are not actually in Second World War anymore. You know, we've moved on. Yeah. And you know, also the Soviet Union, it doesn't exist anymore. You know, you've got the Russian Federation. They're not communists, by the way. They're God-fearing. They're actually church-going people. Yeah. Just saying, you know, because if you listen to your Congress critters, you would really think that the Soviet Union still exists. It's weird. So I said to you in many books, and including this one, there's no way your Thunderbolt 2, your Warthog, yeah, I can't even say that word without sounding a bit weird. That thing will never get through. Yeah, no, it will be shut down long before it gets to the tanks. So wake up. That won't work. But you were very happy with it because you were using depleted uranium shells. Yeah, well, you know, let me say to you, uranium Depleted uranium shells actually do work very well. We've used them ourselves. Read the Eggbreaker War series, I go into that quite a bit. But the negative of this, and I think it might be in Voices War Crimes USA in that book, is that it does cause the environmental disasters. So if you go to a place where the US has used those shells totally unnecessary and totally beyond belief in quantities, in a place like Iraq, you will find there's a lot of women giving birth now to children without arms and, just deformed. Now, I know a lot of you will say, no, that's inbreeding, man, that's inbreeding. Well, you're racist. You're racist. But, no, it cannot be. The statistics actually prove something else. The statistics says there weren't that many problems until you arrived and you were shooting that ship. And now there's the problem. And now you ran away and these people sit with a problem. It reminds me, that's why I was speaking about my cat, Little Bear, just now. How worried I am because my cat is in the hospital. But I know he'll be okay. I have peace in my heart. But I can just imagine how a parent would feel when your child is born without arms or is totally deformed because you shysters started the war on behalf of Israel, lied about it for 20 years, never found your weapons of mass destruction, still lying about it, and now sure as God you go and you attack Iran because you're still trying to help Israel, who you don't have a treaty with to do so. Yeah, why is that? I don't get it. I don't get it. But I'm not anti-Semitic and I'm not anti-Jewish at all. I just don't understand you unless I start saying to you, read Oath of Evil, the warn Protestantism, and realize that the US is the second beast of the Bible. And if it's the second beast of the Bible, it's going to implement the will of the first beast, who actually hates Jews. The Catholic system, they hate you. They hate you. And the first beast actually gets his power from where? The dragon, which is what? Satan. Okay, right. So now you've got a satanic worshipping cult there going on. And this major Protestant country has changed to a Catholic one. And is now under the influence, it's become a second beast. And now it is assisting the Jews, which I don't like. And guess what? Guess what, my Israeli mates? At some stage, that country is going to drop you, like it dropped everybody else. You're being set up to be wiped out. And sure, I pray that I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong. If you believe in the Bible, I'm not wrong. But you have to read that 650-page book. This one, by the way, is a little bit not that long, 477 pages. So it's a substantial book, like all GMJs. So anyway, in the book, this Sir Dennis, the fighter pilot, he starts explaining how what he saw and witnesses there at the Top Gun and red flag exercises. And he basically says they cheated. They cheated so much because they couldn't win. The F-14s would arrive and they would take on the F5Es and they would lose every single time. Why? Because you have hot shots there. You've got these guys who think they are aviators. Actually, they're not fighter pilots, they're aviators. And they flying the F-14, man. One is Tom Cruise flew as well. That one. Problem with that thing is its engines are shite. There's not enough frost. And the frost that there is, they run out of quite quickly. So they try to compensate with a very big missile they had on it, which was probably one of the first beyond visual range missiles, the Phoenix BVR. Now the Phoenix is as big as a damn house, man. It's a huge thing. And what they would do is they would have like a zoom lens of a video camera right in the cockpit, and then they would zoom in because they didn't have any other technology to do it. And then they could down actually this enemy aircraft from quite a long distance away. Yeah, well, that's a theory because let me explain something to you. You never actually used it in combat, so we don't know. We don't know if the Phoenix would have actually worked. In fact, I think it wouldn't. Because John in this book actually says it's not hard to dodge a beyond visual range missile once you know it's there. Now we'll see if that is true or not. I'm sure that on Legacy Conversations I'm going to speak to a few Top Gun guys, the fighter pilots. And I've actually asked them these questions in private, and they have interesting answers. Very, very interesting answers. And of course, it moved on. It moved on since the time of Salinas. But it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that the F-14 is not a good aircraft. The Grumman F-14 Tomcat, you might be shocked by this because, again, it has only really 2 or 3 claims to fame. The one is, of course, the Top Gun movie of Tom Cruise, which the CIA funded. Yeah, it's a total propaganda shite. And the second one about it is that the claim to fame was this Phoenix missile, which was never actually used. The other problem with beyond visual range, and we speak about it in Codename Blue Tang as well, is who do you shoot at? And your problem is also, well, let's say you have an F-35 or F-14, and let's say you launch your BVR, and let's say you missed. Or let's say you downed one, but the second or the third or the fourth one is still coming for you. Tell me what? Tell me. What now? What now? Whenever I ask you this question, you say to me, no, that will never happen. No, you don't understand. We have BVR and missiles, man. That thing will never get close enough to us to shoot at it with our cannon, which F-35 didn't have until recently. Shame. I'll talk about that too. And then what? Let's say it happens, because shit happens in war. Really, guys, shit happens. You tell me things will not happen in war, I tell you, oh, man, be like a Boy Scout, be prepared, because it's probably going to happen. You know how it is. Whatever you don't want to happen, happens. It's like that, man. It's always like that. And so now what? You can't dogfight. F-14 cannot dogfight. It's too heavy, it's too big, the engines aren't good enough. It's a shite aircraft, let me say it for the last time. F-35 even worse. You've lost a dogfight, a mock dogfight against an F-16D. And then what you do? No, you came out and said, yeah, but you know what? Our aircraft, the F-35, it wasn't configured correctly. It will never happen again. And besides that, you know what? It will never happen because our missiles. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Let me explain something to you. If that happens, if a F5E Tiger 2, that's what they call it. If that thing went up against an F-14, it would shoot it down every single time. I'm talking about dogfights now. Let me explain something else to you. If a F-16 and the F-18 goes up against the F-5E Tiger 2, and the pilots are basically the same in combat experience and training, the F-5 is going to win. Yeah? You know that, it's going to win. Don't even want to talk about the Phantom, because the Phantom was never a good dogfighter. It's a bad dogfighter. But anyway, it then comes out that they actually had to cheat. The guys in the aggressor squadrons had to fly wrongly. They had to make rookie mistakes, so that US Air Force guys, as well as the aviators, that they could actually boost their morale a bit, so that they could actually get a clean kill or something. Otherwise, they would have no chance whatsoever. They would break their spirit. So we got to this stage where they say there's a 15-1 advantage. In other words, what they're saying is, yeah, we're so good. It's proven at Top Gun and Red Flag. You can check my statistics, by the way. It's available. But they will shoot down 15 aircraft for every one you lose. In fact, the actual figure would be closer to 2-1, and that is absolutely only if you have a total rookie pilot on the other side who doesn't know how to deal with you. If that guy knows how to deal with you, he's going to shoot you down every single time. Why is this important? Because let me explain something to you. The Soviet Union and the Russians even today has 3 different aggressor, not squadrons. It's almost like wings. It's quite large. They have they put a tremendous amount of money and training into the aggressor squadrons. And they don't cheat. They don't cheat. What they did is they got about, I think, 41, some say 45, but they got about 41 of F5Es from Vietnam. After South Vietnam fell, you remember when the US ran away there from the buildings, leaving their files behind? Yeah, the CIA, we did that. Yeah, leaving the encoding machines there as well. Yeah, he did that too. Yeah, it's in the books. Yeah, we know. When they ran away, they left a massive air force there. And basically, the Soviet Union got hold of a brand new F5 Tigers. A damn good thing they didn't get Phantoms, because if the Soviet Vietnam had Phantoms, they would definitely ended up in the aggressor squadrons. And then they started studying these things and they started flying the envelopes to beating. Now, again, listen to what I said in the beginning. The F5 is a better dogfighter than the F16 and the F18, all right, in those years, which meant that they knew how to defeat F-16s and F-15s and F-18s. They knew. Which is why I say to you in Codename Blue Tang, you never, let me repeat that, never, ever, you did not have air superiority in the 1980s in the European theater. You live in a bloody dream world if you think you did. You don't. And then it came out, read Codename Blue Tang, that Soviet missiles were 8 times better. Not 8%, 8 times better than your crap. Yes. So, you can walk around and you can say to me, since Korea, no American soldier ever died of air combat from an enemy air force because, we're so fantastic, the US Air Force. My late wife used to say you can't navigate, you don't know where you're flying to, but anyway. And you quote the stupid statistics against. Who were you up against? Who were you up against? Flippin' what? Nothing. Don't talk Kosovo to me. Don't talk Serbia to me. No, you even there. Wasn't one of your stealth bombers shot down there? Yeah, he was. Yeah. Forgot about that, huh? We've not forgotten about it. Anyway, so really, you have to wake up to the fact that the F-35 cannot dogfight, is not stealthy, and is going to be shot down in droves one day. Once you take on a decent military, you're going to find out what you're going to find out. And I've been warning you for such a long time. But let me say to you, since you designed the aircraft not to have a cannon, perhaps I should take my glasses off it. You can see my eyes, I'm rolling it. You engineers, great work. Yeah, you've done well. Just remember that when those young men and women start dying, you'll flip and fold, idiot. And by the way, we had to find something else out as well. You know who's got the best ejection seats in the world? Huh? Not you. No, US, not you. No. Britain, no, not you either. No. It seems the Russians and the Chinese have. Of course, the witty ones would then say to me, yeah, of course, it's a good thing, man, because they would need it too. Okay, I take your point. Perhaps it's so. But do you know that the chances are when you eject from your Western crap ejection seat, there's a good chance that you're going to be so seriously injured that you can't run away, so they're going to find you. And, if you're shot down in the Middle East or somewhere, they might burn you alive. That happened. Yeah. We know about it. They might cut your balls off as well. I don't know. If you're a female, they're definitely going to rape you. Yeah. It's going to happen too. But that's why the Israeli Air Force don't like the female air crew, but there was a South African Jewish woman who actually, also in the codename Blue Tank, who actually sued them in the High Court, in the Supreme Court, to become air crew. And that's the problem. That's a problem when you have females flying combat. If they are shot down, you know what? Those pilots are not always treated well, they're not. But I don't want to get into that argument. I believe that a woman has the right to fight. And in the shadow world where I come from, yeah, no, most of the team leaders are actually female and they flippin' good and they will fight. They will fight. Go and read Codename 1 Alpha. where we simulated the Western Special Forces team, who was then chased down to see if they can operate here. And of course, we had to lower our standards very much to simulate the Western Special Forces team. And they got run down. And one alpha was a female in life, when she was still alive, Zulu girl. And she sort of surrendered, and when they came close to grab her, she just swam. In other words, she swinged. In other words, she started eating them, started punching and running. Of course, they got her again, and this time they, I wouldn't say abused her, but they definitely got her in a grip which she couldn't swing further. Point I'm trying to make is they will swing. So I don't know, man. It's a hard choice, that one. Anyway, in January of 2020, by this time you already had your F-35 crap. But let me give you another statistics. It takes you between 2 and 3 years to build one of these aircraft. It cost you what? Between $70 and $120 million each. During the Second World War, you could build an entire B-24 Liberator. Yeah, you could build that bomber in what do I hear? 62 minutes. How long after that could it fly? 18 hours. How long does it take you now? Yeah. See, that's where we go. You see the problem here? It's the same which I said to you. For every one ship you can build in the US, China can build 280. Yeah, think about that. Wake up. Think about it. Yeah. Then you get people like Donald Trump, greatest military in the world. No, you ain't. Really, you're not. You just wake up. And so in January 2020, it was actually admitted that the F-35 had a useless cannon, because by now they started fitting a cannon with 25mm General Dynamics GAU-22A, the 4 barrels working at the Gatling system, rotary cannon. Yeah, but sadly, it couldn't hit ground targets. Software glitch, my man, software glitch. You don't know how to line it up. I probably shouldn't say this to you, but those software engineers working for you, were they perhaps from a BRICS country like India? Yeah, think about it. Been warning you a long time. I've been warning you. Can it actually shoot something in the air? No, not really. No. Why? Because you took one aircraft and you decided, like the US Navy did, where there's one stupid vessels they built, to think that one ship or one aircraft can do everything. No, it cannot. It's not that far ahead yet. Technology is just not there. But anyway, you wouldn't listen, so what do I care? Then, of course, it came out that the Norwegian Air Force, which is small but really good, they got the F-35s. And guess what? Shame. They had to discover that this aircraft reports back to the US all the time. So in other words, they can't use this aircraft like they want to, because the US can just cut it. There, Israel, is your other damn problem. What you got to do, the US suddenly says in a few years from now, because the people under 50 don't like you at all. In fact, they hate you. What you got to do, if you have a very negative type of outlook against you in Congress, can happen. Don't think it can't. Then we just got the spare parts. What you gonna do? I don't know what you're gonna do. Do you know how many aggressor squadrons the Chinese Air Force have? And by the way, the Chinese Air Force is much more powerful than the US one. Yeah, the Navy too. Yeah. But strange, you don't hear these things. It bothers me. It bothers me when people start lying. But you might sit there and say, because you're the liar here. No, I'm not. I have the evidence. I have the statistics. Read my books. And I will also reveal to you that where you, US Air Force pilot, you fly on an average 4 hours a month. Yeah, that was what is revealed. That means you have the skills to take that aircraft up and land again. And you can't really fight with it, because you need a lot more hours than that. Unless, of course, you go operational, but I'm talking in general now. But the Chinese fighter jockey flies between 160 and 180 hours a month. That's about what you fly, what, in about 2 years. Yeah. And they have 3 regiments of aggressor squadrons. Why would the Chinese do that? Tell me. Why? Do you think we're stupid? Do you really think? Tell me, Lindsey Graham, you people, you hobos there from the US Senate and Congress and White House. And, yeah. Do you think every time you make us fret that you're gonna just arrive and bomb China and you're gonna do this, and once you're done with Russia, you're gonna do that? Do you think those people are not listening? Do you really think that they're just sitting there and they think, oh, okay, well, it's okay, you can come and do that to us. No, we'll bend forward. We'll touch our toes. We'll be like the Brits, you can come and do us from behind whenever you want. No problem. No. Touch my toes, sir. Thank you, sir. Really, I enjoyed that, sir. No, that's great. No. Brits might do it. NATO, yeah, of course, NATO will do it. French might not. You never know with the French. But the rest, definitely, of course they will. Yeah, of course. They'll even call you daddy, man. They'll call you daddy. Yeah. But the Chinese and the Russians don't think of you like that. Freaks. They don't. They think of you as the enemy. And they respect you enough to take you seriously in the fact that they will take countermeasures and they will do whatever they can to destroy you. Now, you see, that's where the problem comes in, because you don't do the same. You talk about your enemies with contempt. Yes, it's like, oh, we're going to smoke a cow. Remember those things in the first Gulf War? We fly 2,000 miles to smoke a cow. Yeah. But you get chucked out there afterwards. Were you thrown out of Afghanistan? Yes, you had to run away. Iraq, yeah, you ran away from there as well. Where else did you run away? Let me think now. There's so many countries. So anyway, it's a warning to you. And then let's talk quickly about Dick Lord. Now, the name Dick Lord doesn't mean much to most of you, but to us in South Africa, we think of a former Air Force general who started his career actually in the Royal Navy, like so many did. And he was flying the Fleet Air Arm Phantom II. He was a good pilot, very good pilot, in fact. And he was instrumental to actually set up these Top Gun schools of yours and Red Flag. He was one of those who actually designed it and got it to life while still in the Royal Navy, still flying for the Brits. And then afterwards he came to South Africa and he started the same thing in South Africa, of course. That of course is not as great a scale, obviously not. But let me tell you, the old South African Air Force, not today, because again, they don't have money. They were better than the Israeli one. They could load and bomb an aircraft and turn it around quicker than what the Israeli Air Force could do. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Second oldest Air Force in the world? No. That's what they will tell you, but in fact, that's bullshit. It's not true. South African Air Force is the second oldest Commonwealth Air Force in the world. But still, proud history, great Air Force in its time. Right now it's struggling. It's struggling because of a lack of money, but I would definitely not underrate them. I wouldn't do that. After 1969, when the US Navy Fighter Weapons School, known as Top Gun, was set up by people like Dick Lord, guess what happened then? For the first time in 2 years, you could actually down a MiG over North Vietnam. First time in 2 years. So it worked. And then came the US Air Force with its Red Flag operations. But the problem here is still, it will not work. It will not work if you start cheating on your scores and you say to your aggressor pilots, fly as shite as you can on purpose all the time. I don't have a problem in the beginning. I mean, they would say in the beginning, the first few flights, they would fly stupid just to give these guys a little bit of a feeling, that they don't get destroyed and lose whatever balls they have. And they won't go outright fly the right envelopes if they know we cannot be defeated. They would fly stupid so that these guys can build themselves up. But my friends, the question I have to you is, do you think the Russian pilot of a Chinese pilot or even South African one in the Gripens or whatever, do you think they are going to fly like that? Huh? Do you think they're going to fly stupid just to be shot down by you? I think we know the answer. The answer is no. You're flipping insane. Of course not. They're going to take you on. You know, my late wife once said to me, it is actually more difficult to fly a F-18 Super Hornet than a helicopter. And I said, Missy, how can you say such things? Everybody knows it's harder to fly a helicopter, man. You have to use all your limbs, your feet, both arms, and your eyes and everything. You have to be coordinated, man. It's difficult. And she says to me, Chris, she had a very strange way of saying Chris, but she said, F-18 Super Hornet is flying on the edge. And when you're on that edge, you're at the edge. And it means that you can lose control of that aircraft right on the edge. You know why I'm at the edge there? You know why? Because I expect the MiG on the other side of a Sukhoi to be on the edge. And frame for frame, and this is what came out in a John Boyd theory as well. And I'm going to make an episode on that on Legacy Conversations. Frame for frame, the Russian and the Chinese aircraft is as good as, if not better than what you have. Remember that. And then also think of the amount of flying we do, the hours, which makes the entire Air Force to go up into fifth gear. Why? Because those aircraft must be maintained. You can fly, you land, 150 hours later of maintenance, you can take off again. You don't have 100 and 150 hours in intensive combat. You just don't. You don't. And then the other thing is the mechanics, everyone gets sharper. And then, worst of all for you, they have better missiles. The best missile in the world, air-to-air, currently, today, short range, medium range, South African missile, yes, called the Nels Agile V3E daughter. And it's improved now. It's even better. You will be shot down. We'll find out how great your ejection seats really are. Anyway, this declared in 1970, after they set up his red flag and everything, he returned to South Africa and he joined the South African Air Force. And I have to say that Dick Lord couldn't speak Afrikaans very well, which in those days, 1970, was a very big deal. Even your wife had to speak Afrikaans or you wouldn't be allowed in the forces. Or so they say, but they knew the value of this man, so they grabbed him. Now, the other interesting thing is there was an officer called Breitenbach. Jan Breitenbach was a colonel. Also flew as a navigator. He flew for the Royal Navy as well. He would have been a pilot until he played rugby and hurt his knee. And then he became a navigator, flew at the Suez, you know, where Eisenhower humiliated France, Israel, as well as the Brits, with the Suez Channel, with that crisis. Then he came back to South Africa, same story. His wife couldn't speak Afrikaans that well. Also speaks it very well today. Colonel Jan is late now. I believe General Lord is late as well. Rest in peace, sir. And he almost wasn't allowed to become an officer in South Africa because of his wife's lack of Afrikaans. But that's how it was. That's how it was in the old South Africa. So anyway, when you arrive for basic training, the corporals and the sergeants and the sergeant majors and the warrant officers and even commander will come there and say to you, well guys, you know what, we spoke English for the first 50 years of our existence and now we speak Afrikaans, fuck you, let's go. And that's the last time you would hear any English. And I felt sorry for the English guys amongst us. They suffered. They really suffered. But they were tough bastards and they did well. With Colonel Breitenbach, there's many episodes of him, not him personally. Yeah, well, some of him he actually speaks himself. On Legacy Conversations, you can go and listen to it. He's a brilliant man because he created the 3 elite units in the South African Defence Force, Special Forces. He created them. He created the paratroopers, was seen as the elite unit. And he also created Free-2 Battalion, which is a black unit which operated behind enemy lines. And there's a lot of him speaking on legacy conversations if you're interested. So there's another thing, a last thing which I actually want to bring to you, two things which I want to bring to your attention, which comes out in the book. You know, there's a lot of things which comes out in my books, which is fascinating. The first one is Billy Goat Clinton. Yeah, Billy Goat Clinton. You know that guy who couldn't go to Vietnam because he went to Oxford University? Yeah, him. You know that fellow who went to Epstein Island how many times? 8 times or something without his bodyguards. That same fellow who launched a missile attack on so-called Al-Qaeda or somewhere in Africa on the very day which he had to testify about that affair we had a blowjob in the White House. Yeah. Well, I mean in his office, in the Oval Office. Having a job like that in the White House, I suppose, is not that uncommon. I mean, some of the presidents are actually married, and I know it was Lyndon Johnson who used to point to certain secretaries and say they could blow a tennis ball through a hosepipe or something. Not my leaders, guys. It's your leaders. Yeah. Leaders of the free world, huh? Yeah. We looked up to you once. Really don't anymore, or I don't. But anyway, with Billy Goat Clinton, he never served. He apparently didn't inhale weed at Oxford, and later he said no, he did. Yeah, of course he did. He's a bloody liar. But somebody wrote a book. A guy called General Hugh Shelton. He was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he wrote a book. Go look for it. It's a good book to read. Without hesitation, The Odyssey of an American Warrior. And in the book, he says that the codes were missing for months. That's a big deal. It's a Gargantian deal. Okay, what was he talking about? It refers to another book which Lieutenant Colonel Robert Patterson actually wrote. He was a military aide to Bill Clinton, and he wrote a book called Dereliction of Duty, the eyewitness account of how Bill Clinton compromised America's national security. So what did this Clinton do? Let me tell you. He lost the nuclear codes. Yeah, for months. For months. He thought he left the nuclear codes, in the upstairs where they live. And then he came out, he actually lost the nuclear codes. So for those many months, that is what General Shelton was talking about. The US had no chance of retaliating if there would have been a nuclear strike against it. Yeah. Those are your presidents, guys. Don't be angry with me. I just thought I'll bring it to your attention. And then I want to talk about something that's very quick. In Codename Green 41, we were asking the question if it's possible to rock an army into inefficiency. In other words, if I'm a warlord and I'm fighting you in Afghanistan and I start supplying you with heroin, or like happened in Vietnam, or I start supplying you with wheat or whatever, and you people are smoked and rocked out of your minds, can I use that as a weapon of war? No, you have to read the book to actually understand whether you can or not. But I just want to quote you some statistics, which I quote in this book as well, because we had to find out that many of these military pilots are actually being flippant rocked when they fly combat. Yeah, that's true too. They take pills to stay awake, and so they are dropped. And those pills, if you start using it, will make you what? What do I hear? A druggie. And then, of course, it has an effect on your judgment. Yeah. Amazing things which comes out in the GMJ books. So anyway, it's amazing because there was a US Navy captain called Jamie Sands. Now, Captain Sands, I don't know what's his rank now, was actually in charge of 900 SEALs based on the East Coast. Now, the East Coast Navy SEALs are not known to be that sharp. Low percentage unit in my eyes. They can do things which I think the guys on the Atlantic side, the teams there will never allow. But I don't rate your Navy SEALs highly at all. But that doesn't matter. What did this Captain Sand, what did he say? What did he say in 2017? And the problem is worse today. He said, I feel like I'm watching our foundation, our culture erode in front of our eyes. I feel betrayed. What's the captain on about? Why is he saying this to the US Navy SEALs? All 900 of them, of which about 90 of them would have qualified for South African Special Forces. They're simply too low standards at the East Coast. Why is he saying these things? He says, how do you decide that it's okay for you to do drugs? There you go. There you go. There were some of you who contacted me and say, Chris, of course not. These people will never do drugs, man. Where you come from? You call our special forces a bunch of druggies? No. Guys, there are so much evidence out there. Don't deny which is obvious to us. How many times have we found former of your special forces people dead on where they working as contractors and they still have a needle in the arm? Do you think they started doing that after they left the service, or you think they did it during their service years? Do you know why they are so dropped off? Do you know? Okay, let me explain. None of your generals actually have any ideas, or admirals, any idea how to use special forces. And so they are overused. And because they're in a wartime situation, they had to lower their standards to get more people in to cut the losses, because a lot of them leave because of stress, away from the families, better job offers with the contractors, or they just flip and fed. And so they leave. And so what happens is you now have degenerates who really should never be there, or weaklings, and then they start using drugs, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse until you have a honorable man like Captain Sand stands up and says, it's not okay. It's not okay. And guys, it's not okay. And then you get angry with me when I tell you these things. You get very angry. You're angry with me. That's fine. But guys, should you not rather do something about your problem? I don't have a problem. I don't use drugs. I piss on drug users. Really, if you have that kind of problem, sort it out. How hard can it be? You sorted your drug problems out after Vietnam. Yeah, you did. You became a fairly good army again. But you're now at Vietnam. You're at the same place. But yet you don't realize it. And I hope that this book, codenamed Jen, will actually open your damn eyes. And it will actually show you a little bit more about life than what you are seen by your enemies. And then perhaps you will not get that angry and dismissive and just say, well, let's think about this, guys. Let's see what we can do. But that's the only thing which is going to save you in the coming wars. Right? Enough of my preaching to you. I'm sure you don't want to hear it anyway. But I do feel duty bound to tell you because of my late wife. And I do have sympathy with you, even if it doesn't sound like that. Like I said to you before, if I want to kill you or do harm to you, I will never ever warn you. I'll just strike. But that's what I'll do. And there's lots of people like me. While I'm still warning you, be happy. Codename Jen. It's available on Amazon. It's the usual audio, Kindle, as well as hardcover, softcover. Great book to read. All sorts of twists and plots in it. Sir John, well, I'm not going to tell you whether he survives or not. I sort of told you already because he's in other books. But some say he had to negotiate, others say he had to beg. What I've seen actually at that incident, yeah, he was begging. He was begging. But that's what happens. That's life. Okay, guys. Until we meet again. God bless.